Ferrero Rocher is the Sharpay Evans of supermarket chocolate selection. It's high-end and it's on a different echelon than Reese's Pieces, Snickers, or even Kit Kat. Ferrero Rocher is delicious and it's luxurious, but they only give you 3, and I always want more. So today we are going to be making Rocher XL, a petit gateu that is inspired by the original Ferrero Rocher and consists of a rich and decadent gluten-free chocolate brownie, crunchy feuilletine, a Gianduja Cremeux, and a hazelnut whipped ganache. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, keep watching.
I'd like to love you night and day, if I may.
So first things first, we need to get our decadent chocolate brownie into the oven. We are going to place 100 grams or 2 large eggs in the bowl of our stand mixer with 25 grams or 2 tablespoons of sugar and whisk that until it is thick and pale. Bonus points if you can comment down below another word for thick and pale. In a bowl, we're going to combine 135 grams or 1 cup of high quality dark chocolate and 85 grams or 6 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to microwave this to melt my chocolate and butter together in 20-second increments and stir in between each round so that we don't burn that chocolate. You can also melt this over a double boiler if you're more comfortable with that, but I like to use the least amount of dishes possible. In a small pot, we are going to bring 60 grams or a 1/4 cup of water and 50 grams or a 1/4 cup of sugar to a boil. Once this comes to a boil and our chocolate and butter mixture is melted, we are going to slowly combine the two by whisking it. Be sure to do this slowly so that our sugar doesn't crystallize into the chocolate.
I'd like to love you, if I may. I'd like to love you.
Then I am lining an 8-inch cake pan with parchment paper and generously oiling it so that our brownie doesn't stick. This brownie is basically all chocolate and has very little structure. So you want to make sure that you really oil your pan well so that it doesn't give us a hard time later when we have to unmold it. And then we can bake this at 330 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 to 15 minutes. You'll know that your brownie is done when it starts to form a crust on the top. The toothpick method will not work for this because the brownie is so moist that a toothpick won't come out clean. The brownie will also sink in the center. Don't be alarmed, that is totally normal. Now let's move on to our praline. We are going to start with 200 grams or 1 1/4 cup of toasted hazelnuts. Make sure your nuts are well toasted so that they're nice and fragrant, and also make sure that they are cool. Then in a small pot, we are going to make a caramel with 150 grams or 3/4 cup of sugar and 60 grams or a 1/4 cup of water. Combine these 2 ingredients in a small pot and just let it sit. Do not stir because agitating the sugar will cause crystals to form. So just let it sit over medium heat until the sugar starts to caramelize. If some sugar starts to splash against the side of the bowl, you can wet a brush with water and gently glide that against the edges of your pot so that the sugar on the edges doesn't burn and start to smoke. Once your caramel is nice and golden brown, remove it from the heat and pour it over a pan so that it can cool, and sprinkle it with just a pinch of sea salt. Typically, when you make a hazelnut praline, you would caramelize the nuts into the sugar and then blend it. But that makes your food processor work twice as hard because you create a thick sugar coating around each nut, and if you have ever eaten caramelized hazelnuts, you know that they are very, very hard. Now, if I were in a professional kitchen with a RoboCoupe, I would absolutely caramelize my nuts, but my little Costco Ninja foodie processor is not gonna cut it. So this way is a little shortcut. Once your caramel has cooled and hardened, we are going to place half of our caramel and half of our nuts in the processor and work that until you have a smooth almond butter consistency. If you're having a really hard time blending this or your praline isn't at the right viscosity, you can add a tablespoon of neutral or a hazelnut oil to help loosen everything up in your blender. Then we are going to repeat that process with the other half, and voila, you made a hazelnut praline. Now let's move on to our whipped ganache. We are going to place 60 grams or a 1/4 cup of cream into a pot with 7 grams or 1 teaspoon of corn syrup, 6 grams or 1.5 teaspoons of sugar, 80 grams or 1/3 cup of milk, and gently bring that to a boil. Once that comes to a boil, we are going to pour that over 235 grams or 1 cup of our hazelnut praline paste that we just made. Give that a good stir to combine and then pour in 240 grams or 1 cup of cold cream. Now we are going to strain this into a clean container, put a lid on it, and refrigerate it overnight, and then we will whip it when we need it. Next, we gotta make our Gianduja Cremeux. You are going to place 80 grams or 1/3 cup of cream and 80 grams or 1/3 cup of milk into a pot and bring that to a boil. In a bowl, we are going to place 40 grams or 2 large egg yolks with 25 grams or 2 tablespoons of sugar and give that a whisk. Once our cream comes to a boil, we are going to pour it over the egg yolks and whisk vigorously to gently warm up the eggs. Then pour the egg mix back into the pot and cook that to 85 degrees Celsius or just until it begins to thicken. Then you want to take this whole creme anglaise mixture and pour this over 100 grams or half a cup of Gianduja and the remainder of our praline paste. Gianduja is a beautiful combination of chocolate and hazelnuts, which is basically what this whole dessert is. The brand that I'm using is Michele Cluizel, and they have beautiful, high-quality ingredients that I love to use in my recipes. And this chocolate is perfect for what we're making today because it is full of hazelnut flavor. I really recommend getting this Gianduja for this recipe, but if you can't get it, just substitute it for a milk chocolate. And I will write the alternative in the description below. Then you want to emulsify your cremeux and place it in a piping bag. Then pipe it into our demi-sphere molds. And we are going to place this into the freezer overnight. Now, once everything is set up, we can finally assemble our petit gateu. We are going to place our whipped ganache in the bowl of our stand mixer and whip that until it's reached medium peaks. Then we are going to pipe the whipped ganache into our sphere mold about 2/3 of the way high. Now we are going to place in our Gianduja Cremeux, but we want to fuse 2 halves together to make a full circle. The cremeux should still be really soft, so all you need to do is gently warm up the face of the demi-sphere using the warmth of your hands. And then the 2 halves should stick together pretty easily. Then we are going to roll this in Feuilletine, which is going to give us that signature Ferrero Rocher crunch. Now place your cremeux into the mold and press it down ever so gently. You want the sphere to sit in the center of our petit gateu, so don't push it all the way down. Then we are going to completely cover the cremeux with more whipped ganache and finally place the brownie in. I just used a circle cutter to cut out pieces of the brownie that would fit perfectly into this mold. And you will have extra brownie. This was the smallest recipe that I could make without compromising the ratio of the recipe. But have no fear, because having extra brownie pieces is hardly a problem. So I just cut the remainder of the brownie I had into little cubes and I store this in the freezer. It makes a wonderful ice cream topping or just a late night snack. Now push your brownie in so that it sits flush with the base of the mold. I don't mind if you push it and your cream pushes out of the side. I would actually prefer it because we know we have filled that mold to capacity and all of the pressure would push out any air bubbles. So when we unmold it, it'll be perfectly full and there will be no air pockets. So just clean up the edges of any cream and we can stick this into the freezer until it is frozen solid. And now we have one more component. I know, I'm exhausted. But this one is easy, I promise. So lastly, we are going to make our crunchy hazelnut coating. We're gonna melt 200 grams or 1.5 cup of dark chocolate in the microwave in 20-second bursts. Don't burn my chocolate. And melt 59 grams or 1/4 cup of cocoa butter. You can melt that over the stove because cocoa butter does not burn easily. Then we are going to emulsify those two together. And lastly, we are going to roughly chop 50 grams or 1/3 cup of hazelnuts and combine it all together. And that's it, the coating is done. I told you it was gonna be easy. Once our spheres are frozen solid, we can unmold them and begin to pour our glaze over the rochers. And the cocoa butter in this recipe will make it set up really quickly once that glaze hits the frozen rocher. I'm going to finish it off with some gold leaf, because duh. And when they defrost, we are all ready to dig in. it for today's recipe. Chocolate and hazelnut are just a match made in heaven, and I hope that this satisfies your Ferrero Rocher cravings. You can just pick these up and eat them. So not only is it a good dessert to make, but it's also a great portable food that you can, you know, just pull out of your purse and eat on the subway or on the bus or at a picnic with your friends or at the airport. I don't want a little bag of trail mix. I want this. This dessert is mouth-watering. So I have to go now. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment down below what other recipes you guys want to see, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Are you freaking kidding me? We did it again, guys. Look at that. Doesn't that just look like something you want to have in your mouth?
Smash the like and subscribe button and comment down below of what you want me to do.
Ghoster, you cannot even eat any chocolate because you're just a dog, and dogs cannot eat any chocolate anytime because it's not very good for you. It's not very good for you.